So I'm excited that we have Tama with us today. She's the author of 3 books, which are here today if you'd like. Inspired and Unstoppable, Wildly Succeeding in Your Life's Work. And her newest book, which is the topic of today, Thriving Through Uncertainty. She's been featured on Oprah, ABC, the Huffington Post, and more. And she leads retreats around the world with compassion. I love this, edgy humor. I like that. And real-world spirituality, and brings out the possibilities that she sees in others. Please welcome Tama Kieves. Yes. Can we use this? Okay. Blessings. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Oh, God. Oh, you look beautiful. Wow. So I guess I wanted to start off by asking a question. Is it me, or has life ratcheted up a notch? Oh my God. Everyone you know is going through some kind of uncertainty, or you're going through some kind of uncertainty. And I think it's as though the universe is saying, the grace period is now over. That we have gifts inside us. We know these truths. We know we have a mission. We know we have a dream. We know we have gifts to give. We know these tools. So what's stopping us from living that truth, from living that certainty? And so one thing I want you to know is that if you're going through uncertainty right now, if there's a big transition going on in your life right now, that path is already inside you. It's already inside you, but it's about listening moment by moment to what's in there and to listening to this higher truth. And for me, what that means, it means getting out of my head and being led, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about, because I think we're living in wild, inspired times. And I deeply believe that each of us is a wild, inspired answer to this time. So what I want to talk about then is what stops us from living this truth, from following our inner certainty, from following that God, that love, that higher knowing, because we all know it's there. What stops us from really, truly living this? And here's what I know. If you are not listening to your inner voice, you are listening to somebody else. That's the bottom line. If you're not listening to your truth, your heart, your genius, then you are listening to something else. And so I'm going to ask you, what are you listening to? Are you listening to the internet? Are you listening to the media? Are you listening to the voice of the culture, or a parent, or family? Because 'tis the season, right? They're going to be around telling you advice. And so for me, I was listening to my mother. That's what happened to me. I knew when I was young, I knew my dream. When I was young, I knew I wanted to write. That was my dream. And I took creative writing in high school, and the creative writing teacher was gorgeous. So this was a sign. This was looking good. I think I found my calling, And I went home to share this fabulous news with my family that I'd found my calling. But I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. My family's Orthodox Jewish. And if you said that you found your calling, you wanted to be a writer, nobody said Mazel Tov. Nobody. This was not good news, right? I basically could have said, I found my calling. I want to sell crack cocaine. Could have been the same thing. Because in my mother's mind, selling drugs, selling your body to the night, or being creative. All the same thing. All the same thing. Let's face it, you're all going to live under the same bridge, right? So I basically got, you're going to write? You're going to write? You're going to starve, you're going to write. And that was basically the go for your dreams talk that I got, And then my mother, being a reasonable person, said something like, what, you can't get a job and you'll write on the Sundays, right? And so many of us got this same exact advice, didn't we? Maybe different accent, but most of us got this same exact advice of don't do what you love. Don't do what moves you. Don't listen to your inner core, your inner being. Stay safe. Be practical. be reasonable, follow a solid path, right? And so one of the reasons I've been speaking around the country is because now more than ever, I deeply believe there is no external safe path. It's really about listening. We are the ones who are called to listen to that love and to that genius that's inside us. We've been training for this, right? And so I didn't know any of that back then, and I ignored what I loved and what I wanted. And by the way, how could it ever be unsafe to listen to your heart, to your God, to your soul? To me, the only unsafe path is not listening to that, right? But back then, I ignored all that. I didn't know any of that, and I went off to law school. And I got accepted to Harvard Law School, and I graduated with honors from Harvard Law School. And as you might imagine, my mother was very proud. Very proud. She was bragging in every synagogue for all she was worth. She was like, "Oh, my little girl, I don't want to tell you. Let me tell you." Should I tell you again? And I ended up practicing law at a major law firm on partnership track. And some of you may have had this experience where you're doing what others think is successful, or you're doing what you were told to do, or what's the right path, or what's successful, but it doesn't feel right. Anybody have that experience where it just feels empty inside, right? When you're doing what other people say, but you feel empty inside. It doesn't feel right. And I got more and more scared. And thank God a friend of mine said something amazing to me. He said, think about it. If you've been this successful doing something you don't love, what could you do with what you love? And that for me was the wake-up call. I thought, you know what, you get one life, I want to know where this goes. I want to see where this goes. And so I walked out of my career without a plan, without anything, which, by the way, qualifies you now to be an expert in thriving through uncertainty. Because everybody always thinks, well, she practiced law, she must have been making money, whatever. But, again, if you're unhappy, there's lots of bills, right? There's drinking, there's therapists, there's every healer known to man. I mean, being, come on, it's, being unhappy is very expensive, right? Yeah. So I get asked, I'm a coach, and I work with a lot of leaders and entrepreneurs and artists and creative people and anybody who'll pay me. I'm so afraid I'm going to fall off this stage. I'm trying to move this back. Oh, thank you, because I'm one of those people, and I'm just so worried. Yeah, I want to dance and move. Thank you. Thank you. And so I'm often asked, how do you get there, though? Like, I know that there's this path, but how do you get from A to B to C to D? How do you do this? I know I want to live my dreams. I know I want to follow a calling, but how do I do that? And what I want you to know is this is not a linear path. This is an inspired path. It's not linear. It's not from A to B to C to D. It's in each moment you know the next thing to do. In this moment, there's something that might speak to you that you're being called to do in this moment. And that's this path. So one of the things I always teach all my clients, I tattoo it on their forehead if I can, and it says, you can't plan an inspired life. You can't plan an inspired life. That's what we're doing. That's what this spiritual path is. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this worked for me. I often tell my own stories, not because I'm trying to tell you, oh, look how great I am, but more just because it's where I lived a principle and I want to share it with you. And so when I was writing my first book, This Time I Dance, it took me 12 years to write my first book. And I know some of you heard that and probably got depressed and thought, okay, I'm done listening to her. I no longer have that kind of time. I'm over it now, But I always tell people, I think it took me 11 years to heal, and 11 years to trust, and 11 years to believe in this, and 11 years to work these principles, and 1 year to write a book. Right? So if you're in a life where you feel like it's taking a lot of time and think you're falling behind or you're not where you want to be, please keep in mind, we are doing so much. We are unlearning. We are healing. We are working on so many different levels. Right? So when I first thought about, well, how do I get that book published? I was asking my inner voice, how do I get that published? And I was listening, and I kept hearing this voice, and it said, just put it in the river. Just put it in the river. Isn't that beautiful? What the heck does that mean? Do you ever have an inner voice and it's like you don't even know what it means? But I knew intuitively it meant somehow, just self-publish this book, get it out there some way, somehow. If it's supposed to go somewhere, it would, right? But do you ever do that where you're asking guidance for something and then you get the answer and it's like, oh, can I have another answer? Right? So I thought, oh my God, I have to put my own money into this. I have to, I don't know anything about publishing. I don't know anything about distribution. I don't know anything about marketing. But I thought, okay, I have followed this inner voice this whole time. I'm going to follow it all the way. And the second that you decide to do that, the second that you decide that you're going to follow this voice all the way, the second you are going to meet the most judgmental person you've ever met. I don't know why that is, but I went to an ex-boyfriend's house for a Passover dinner, and I sat down next to this woman, and she was my mother on steroids. And yeah, not good. And so she's drinking bad wine all night, and she starts grilling me all night, and she's like, so you're gonna publish a book, and you know nothing about marketing, and you know nothing about distribution, and you're putting your own money into this? You're very ambitious. Right, which is code, for you're a nut, right? That's code, right? And I don't know if you know anything about the Passover ceremony. It's all about the exodus of the Jews, all about the exodus of the Jews. For the first time in my life, I understood that ceremony. For the first time, I got it. It was like, oh, let my people go. Let my people go. Right? And so she's asking me again, so you're going to publish the book, and whatever. And I'm thinking, what do I tell this woman? Do I tell her, oh, don't worry. I have a plan. I'm going to put it in a river. Right? Do I tell her, don't worry. I've been listening to an inner voice for 12 years. It's very nice. You know how you can say things in rooms like this and we congratulate each other for hearing an inner voice, and we're proud of that? You try talking to normal people. Not so much, right? Not so much. But finally I had the guts to do it. I'll cut to the chase. And by the way, this is good preparation for going home for holidays, by the way, and having family by. So finally, I finally got the guts, and I listened to that inner voice, and I finally got the guts, and I self-published my first book. And it started moving through word of mouth, and it hit the Denver Post bestseller list, and it hit business bestseller list. It was just going through word of mouth. And then I got an email out of the blue that literally said, your fairy godmother has arrived. Your fairy godmother has arrived. Now, if you got an email like that, right, you'd probably think it was spam, right? Come on, if your fairy godmother has arrived. I thought it was going to open it up and it was going to be, Russian girls are waiting for you, Make her happy tonight, I thought it was going to be spam, right? There's money for you in Nairobi, give us your credit card. But I opened it up, and it was an email from a vice president of marketing and publicity for Random House. And she had somehow found my self-published book. And she wrote to me and said, this is the best book I have ever found on, finding your calling, finding your passion. I want to get it to a major New York house. Can I do that? And it's like, for me, it was like saying, I want to help you meet God. It's like, yes! She got it to the publisher I had always, always dreamed of. It was Tarcher, it was part of Penguin, Random House, all the big ones. She got it to the publisher, and they bought the book. And they bought the book exactly the way that it was. They kept the exact writing as an unknown writer. They changed maybe 10 sentences out of the entire book. They kept the exact title, which was unheard of. I didn't know what I was doing when I was designing with self-publishing. I did it in purple because I like purple, and they kept the purple. And so they bought that book. They bought my second book, Inspired and Unstoppable. They bought my third book, A Year Without Fear, and they've just put out this new book, Thriving Through Uncertainty. And so, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I always tell this story because for me it is deeply meaningful when I say to you that you can't plan an inspired life. How can you plan that? How can you ever figure that out? How can you plan, I'm going to have a meltdown for 12 years, right? I'm going to be questioning myself for 12 years. Some other woman's going to be having a meltdown at the end of 12 years because she was in a career transition. That's how she found my book, you know. And we're going to hook up, and that's my business plan. Right, that's what I've got, you know, like what bank is going to go, oh, that sounds good to us, Miss Kieves. We'll sign off on that, right? And so I want you to know that you can't plan an inspired life and that you may not know where you're going right now or you may not know how it's happening right now, but there is a path and there is a genius for each of us moment by moment if we dare to listen to it. So I used to always end with that story because it's a great story and it's a great highlight. But I want to talk a little bit more about thriving through uncertainty. Because a lot of times we think, once I get there, it'll be okay, right? Once I get the book published, it'll be okay, right? Once I get through this diagnosis, it'll be okay. Once I meet the love of my life, it'll be okay. Once I could get this love of my life out of my house, it'll be okay, you know? You know, it's always changing, right? We always think that it's going to be okay over there, down the road. But thriving and the spiritual life is about thriving now, here, in this moment, through the uncertainty, in the uncertainty. That's what a spiritual life is. And so I analogize in my new book, Thriving Through Uncertainty, I analogize the spiritual life to like this video game. Because some of you may have had this experience where, do you ever have the experience where you're dealing with the same issue again? You're dealing with the same fear again. And it's like, I don't know about you, but I'll be like, have I not seen enough therapists for this one issue? You know, have I not journaled enough on this and killed enough trees on this one issue? But you may have the experience of something has come round again, and again, I think it's like a video game where we got to a certain level of success. We did well. We're growing. We did well. We got to a certain level of success, and then we went to the next level. And at the next level, the enemies are harder now. It's scarier. The rules have changed. Everything's different. It's all uncertain again because it's the next level. So for many of you, if you're feeling like, oh my God, how am I in this place again where I'm uncertain or I'm scared? For most of us, we're in a level of expansion now. We're in a level of next growth. And again, the spiritual life is, can you trust it here? Can you use your tools now? Can you choose love instead of fear in this moment? Can you know that inner voice? So again, that's what I think is happening for many of us. We are going to the next level of growth and expansion. So I want to talk to you just an example of that. For me, how that played out was when my second book came out, Inspired and Unstoppable. Before it came out, I had all these great plans of like what behind the scenes, like all this stuff I was going to do. I was going to get it right this time. And you ever do that where you think like, I'm going to make up for my whole life. I'm going to get it right this time. You know, I'm going to make all these plans, right? And behind the scenes, everything started going haywire. You know, before the book came out, everything started going haywire. My partner got really sick, and so that threw everything off, and I started missing deadlines, and we were missing opportunities, and I was getting more and more scared, and I was getting just a little bit frantic, and like, which is very, very attractive, especially in a self-help author who's just written a book called Inspired and Unstoppable, right? So I'm like, you know, and one of my friends is like, okay, you're crazy right now. You need to see this healer. You need to go see the healer. And I don't know about you, but I'll do anything when I'm not, you know, when I'm scared or whatever. So I'm like driving up the mountains, you know, to go see some healer. I don't know, right? So I'm driving up the mountains, and I go meet the healer whose office is in a yurt. In a yurt. I didn't know what a yurt was. A yurt, in case you don't know, is a round tent, okay? And so she sits me down, and she's in a very soft healer voice. She's like, what can I help you with? Can I help you see this differently? What would you love? Right? I am crazy at this point. And so I'm in New York City mind, and I'm like, and this, I want to change this, and this, and this, and this. And I am sure that poor healer thought, oh my God, there's not enough sage on the planet. There is not enough sage on the planet to cleanse this space. I'm going to have to move, And so she grabs me and she takes me to her property, and there's a mountain stream on her property. And she has me stand in the center of the stream. And she says, okay, I want you to face downstream. So I face downstream, and there's all this water rushing past and rushing past and rushing past. And she said, these are all the opportunities you've missed. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be helpful already. I can tell this is really going to do me good. But these are all the opportunities you've missed. They're rushing by and splashing and whatever. And that here's a deadline. And oh my God, that creative idea that you were going to do. Oh, look, it's downstream. Someone else is making $1 million. I'm like, no. That's all you should have done and could have done and would have done. And she asks me, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? And I'm thinking, like, this is not helping me. But how are you feeling? And I finally realized it's out of control. It's splashing. It's out of control. It's out of control. And I finally realized it was out of my control. It was out of my control. And in that moment, I just had this moment of complete self-forgiveness, of realizing when things are out of your control, you are doing what you can do. And I just had that moment of realizing, you know what? I am doing what I can do. And everything else is out of my control. And then she had me turn, and she had me face the stream coming this way. And all the water was rushing and rushing and splashing and splashing. And she said, this is your life. And it's giving you gift after opportunity. Here's the new opportunities and new people and new connections and new health and new money coming your way and new everything. And it was amazing. Because I realized in that moment that it wasn't my past that creates my future. It was my present. It's the present moment that creates the future. Only I wasn't in the present. I was so busy beating myself up for what I should have done and could have done and would have done that I wasn't standing and opening my heart to receive all that was now coming and coming. And I believe that that is the work of those of us in an inspired spiritual community, is can we stay present? Because often what happens is we get disappointed, right? Something doesn't happen the way we wanted. We get disappointed. We start losing faith. We start losing, and then we close our hearts, and we stop believing, and we stop knowing. And so I'm going to ask us as a community today, if we can, or in this moment, if you can, to just can we choose again? Can you choose again to try to believe again, or to know again, or to open yet again and trust yet again all of the love and life that is still coming our way? So I'm going to read to you something from my book, Thriving Through Uncertainty, to end with. But before I do, there's a concept in it that I talk about that's from A Course in Miracles. I've taught A Course in Miracles for over 25 years, and so I quote it a lot. And there's a concept in it that says, who you think you are is a belief to be undone. And what that means is the part of you that thinks you're limited, that you're too old, or you're too young, or you're not educated enough, or you missed an opportunity, or women don't get ahead, or whatever the belief is, right? Who you think you are is a belief to be undone, right? So that's what it's talking about. This passage is talking a little bit more about that video game. I'm going to try without glasses. A Course in Miracles teaches that who you think you are is a belief to be undone. You think you can be stopped. You think you can be diminished. You think you can fail. But that's the game. You can never lose. You already have everything you need. You have this crazy alchemical love within you, and it's yours to give in any situation, which changes every situation and even changes you as you give it. You do not walk alone. Will you choose to listen to the disconnected, smallest version of yourself or the highest allegiance of your spirit? You have a choice. Choose love. Choose again. Choose now. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. So I want to I just want to close with one of my favorite quotes. It's attributed to Jesus from the Gnostics of the Gospel of Thomas. And he says, if you bring forth that which is within you, that which is within you will save you. If you do not bring forth that which is within you, that which is within you will destroy you. It's a little gift of guilt from my people. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.